In this video, I'll show you surprisingly nice hotels I found for around $140 a night in London, Paris, and 7 other European cities. These are July prices in fantastic central locations, and I expected to find terrible options or nothing at all. I'm Roger from priceoftravel.com, and let's start with London. Honestly, the original idea for this video was to show that on a lower daily budget, it's basically impossible to find a halfway decent hotel in Europe's most famous cities. So I started with London, and it was my first surprise. It turns out that in mid-July you can actually get a pretty decent hotel in Bayswater, which is one of my favorite hotel neighborhoods in London, for just $136 a night for 2 people, including all taxes, at the Gresham Hotel. Now, the room only has a double bed, and it's about 140 square feet, but that's actually pretty normal for central London. The reviews are better than you'd expect at this price, and honestly, I would book this myself. You're a couple short blocks north of Hyde Park and also close to Notting Hill, with easy tube access and tons of restaurants nearby. Part of the reason this works is that London has literally thousands of small hotels, so finding a decent one at a good price a few months in advance isn't as rare as you might think. But what about other cities? Next up, I checked Paris. For Paris, I decided to use the exact same mid-July dates and filter everything down to between $130 and $150 per night. I assumed the options would be either something decent way out on the edge of the city or a nightmare central place with terrible reviews. But again, I was surprised. The Makom Pereire is a 3-star hotel with an 8.0 review average for about $137 per night, and it's reasonably close to the Arc de Triomphe and the Champs-Élysées, which is definitely not a cheap area. The room is listed as a classic room small duplex, and it's about 129 square feet, which, again, is pretty normal for a cheaper central hotel in Paris. And just like London, I'd happily book this one as well. So now I'm starting to wonder, is this just a coincidence? Or does this actually hold up in other famously expensive cities like Amsterdam, Rome, and Barcelona? Next up, I checked Amsterdam, and this is where I was sure things would fall apart. And by the way, by the end of this, I think I figured out why these deals exist. For my website, priceoftravel.com, I've been tracking hotel prices in these cities every year since 2010, and I still remember when Amsterdam raised its hotel tax a couple years ago. Prices were already high, and then they jumped again overnight. So I was sure this is where things would fall apart. I expected to have to go way out into the suburbs at this price, but once again, I was surprised. The Quentin Canal House Hotel came up at about $146 per night in July, and it's actually in a fantastic location near the Leidseplein Entertainment District and the Rijksmuseum, which is one of my favorite areas to stay. Now, to be fair, this one does come with trade-offs. The reviews are pretty rough, and the double room is only about 75 square feet, which is definitely tiny. But I've stayed in this exact neighborhood many times, and it's packed with bars, restaurants, cafes, and coffee shops, so if you're mostly out exploring, a small and basic room can still work when the location is this good. And interestingly, Amsterdam ended up being the only city on this list where I really had to compromise like this. And from here on, the hotels on this list get noticeably nicer at about the same price. At this point, it was starting to look like my original premise had completely fallen apart, and based on what I found in Barcelona, I almost started wondering if this video even made sense anymore. Barcelona has become famously crowded and expensive in midsummer. It's right on the Mediterranean, it has sandy beaches within the city limits, and half of Europe seems to take July off, so I wasn't expecting much here at all. But once again, I found something surprising. The Hotel Roma Reial is just 1 block off La Rambla, right in the absolute center of the city, for just about $148 per night. Now, it's a true 1-star hotel and it looks very basic, but the room is actually 151 square feet, which is quite decent, and the reviews are surprisingly strong. And like the others, the location really couldn't be better. Personally, I'd probably look for something a bit nicer here, especially traveling as a couple, but the point is, even Barcelona has central hotels at reasonable prices in summer if you book a few months ahead. So by this point, I had to rethink the whole idea behind this video. Instead of showing how bad the options are, it turns out that Europe might actually be cheaper than you'd expect. And from here on, the hotels on this list get noticeably nicer at about the same price. Now you may not know this, but on my website, priceoftravel.com, I've been ranking cities around the world by price since 2010. And of the 9 cities in this comparison, Rome is the last of the mid to upper tier expensive ones. But at this point, I was already pretty confident I'd be able to find another good July deal, and sure enough, I did. The Hotel Patria came up at about $139 per night, and this one is a clear step up. The room is 183 square feet, so a pretty good size, and it has very solid reviews averaging around 8.0 out of 10. It's also in a really convenient location, right between the main Termini train station and the Trevi Fountain, and I've actually stayed just a block from here before. It's an easy walk to most of the major sites. But overall, I would absolutely book this place, and at $139 for 2 people in July, you've got a lot more room in your budget for food, drinks, and maybe even a few taxi rides. Next up is Berlin, and at this point I was pretty confident I'd be able to find not just acceptable hotels in this price range, but really good ones, especially in the last few cities. I actually mentioned Berlin in another recent video comparing 13 European cities from cheapest to most expensive, and I'll link that one below. While researching that, I noticed that the better hotel deals now tend to be in the former West Berlin, while the trendy areas in the former East have gotten quite a bit more expensive. Even so, Berlin came through with something great and in a really cool neighborhood. For about $133 per night, I found the Mercure Hotel Berlin City, which is a 4-star chain hotel in the Mitte district near the central train station and the Oranienburger Straße area. This is actually where I used to stay for super cheap back in the 1990s before it became so fashionable. The room is 194 square feet, so a very good size, and as you'd expect from a chain like this, it looks excellent. And at this point, things really start to get interesting. Wait until you see how far $140 per night goes in the next few cities. Next up is Prague, and I was a bit unsure about this one because it's one of the cities where hotel prices have gone up the most over the past decade. So what could I actually find for about $140 in July in a great location? Well, good luck reading the hotel name on the screen because I'm not even going to try. But it comes in right at $140 per night with an excellent 8.8 review average, a king bed, and really nice photos. The room is 161 square feet, and it's just a few short blocks from Old Town Square, an easy walk to the astronomical clock and the Charles Bridge. At this point, I started to form a new theory. Deals like this might be pretty easy to find if you book at least a few months in advance. If you think about it, in a city with over 1,000 hotels, some of them are almost guaranteed to underprice their rooms early on just to make sure they fill up for the summer, while others start higher knowing they can raise prices later once the cheaper places are gone. And now there are just 2 more cities to go, and these last ones are where things get really impressive. Now let's head down the Danube to Budapest. This is another city where hotel prices used to feel insanely cheap compared to the earlier ones on this list, but lately they've been catching up pretty quickly. Still, booking about 3 months in advance, I actually had several great options in this price range, but one really stood out. The D8 hotel came up at about $143 per night. It's a 3-star hotel just a block from the river and close to St. Stephen's Basilica, which is a prime hotel location here. The review score is an incredible 9.4 out of 10, which is about as high as you'll ever see in a major city. And on top of that, the rate even includes a breakfast buffet for 2, something that none of the other hotels on this list have offered. The room is about 140 square feet, so still on the smaller side, but it looks modern and stylish, exactly what you'd expect with reviews like that. At this point, I'm honestly starting to think about doing another Europe trip next July just to see what I could book if I started looking even earlier. Last up is Kraków, Poland, and honestly this one is here just to show you how far about $140 per night can go if you choose the right cities. Going into this, my original premise was that decent hotels would be impossible to find at this price in places like London and Paris, and that you'd only find really good value in cities like Kraków. But as it turned out, the results were better than I expected in every city on this list, except maybe Amsterdam. And Kraków absolutely delivered. I found the H12 hotel for about $137 per night with that same incredible 9.4 review average. And trust me, when you book a place with reviews like that, you'll understand why once you get there. The room is 205 square feet, the largest so far, and if you really want to upgrade, you can book a much larger junior suite for only around $162. It's also right near Market Square in the Old Town, which is exactly where you'd want to stay, a beautiful central area surrounded by restaurants, cafes, and historic sites. So it turns out that finding decent and even great hotels in Europe's most famous cities in summer isn't impossible at all. You just have to know how and when to look. I'm definitely going to keep testing this theory in future videos, so if you enjoyed this one, please hit like and subscribe. And if you want to see how these cities actually rank from cheapest to most expensive, check out that video right there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.